Going to do is we're going to learn the skill of reframing. The skill of reframing is powerful for a couple of different reasons. How is it powerful in building confidence, Dave? Why does it matter here? Sounds cool, but why does it matter in terms of my confidence? Because we want to take you from victim to victor. A lot of times when you're looking at certain situations, especially some of the situations from lesson number 1, some of those limiting beliefs that were born out of maybe traumatic, dramatic, or just certain situations or scenarios, we can kind of begin to maybe feel a little bit sorry for ourselves or feel sad that that happened to us or like wish that it was different. Man, I wish I had a dad that didn't have didn't have a big negative reaction every time I asked for something new, or I wish that I had a mom or a household that had more abundance around making money. I didn't have such a conflict with making money and receiving money and attracting money into my life, or I wish. Instead, there's power when you move from something happening to you to something happening for you. And so what we're going to do in this exercise is we are going to look at the various scenarios that you wrote down in lesson number 1, and we are going to reframe them from victim to victor. How did I used to look at them? This happening to me, what was the limiting beliefs that I told myself? And now how can I reframe that to not just give myself a positive affirmation that I could say in the moment, but how can I actually find the learning lesson in the teachable moment or the lesson that I can take from that scenario? This is why this happened for me. For example, let me talk about my own life as an example of how I would reframe a certain situation. For example, I dropped out of high school and missed all of high school, never went to college. For a long time, looked at that as a reason why I was not going to be successful in adulthood. I got clean and started to get my life together at around 24 years old. This was 2008. When I started to kind of realize that, man, I had basically thrown my young adulthood out the window. I had been incarcerated, drug treatment centers, had, a record, had basically tarnished my name on paper. I had no college experience. I had no work experience. I thought that I was destined for crappy jobs, not fast food, because I didn't like to cook and didn't like working in restaurants and just never had a real job with a big corporation. But I went to work with my father. I was working construction. He started taking me and kind of teaching me the trades and the craft. And I thought, well, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. That was a limiting belief that I had because I thought that whole situation happened to me, that I was kind of like a victim of both circumstances and certainly the system and maybe even my family failing me and not better leading or protecting or guiding me. And also a victim of my own poor choices, because I certainly made decisions along the way that led me down that path. As I started now let's switch to the reframe. That's a pretty sad story. That's kind of like a pretty depressing thing if you think about it. As I'm telling it, I'm like, damn, if I wouldn't have reframed that and learned how to reframe that, I would imagine I'd still be depressed to this day, lacking confidence. Imagine thinking that way for decades. And some of us have. You may have thought in certain really disempowering ways for decades. Well, anyways, I learned how to reframe that whole situation and actually realized now today that not going to high school, not going to college, sort of unplugging from the matrix, learning how to hustle and survive, and the survival skills that I built, the grit, the will and willpower, all of these things, like the work ethic, the just basic survival skills, actually benefited me because I did not get programmed the way that everybody else did to basically just have a factory worker mentality, trading time for money, being a good little boy, getting good little grades, going to school, going to college, getting a job, getting a 401k and a white picket fence and yada, yada, yada. Student loans, credit card debt, all the things that are basically pitched to people as soon as they become adult. And I likely would have gone down that path. That was the goal. That was the aim. It's probably what you did too in the plan that was pitched to you, and you may have even followed that plan. And now you're working on reversing some of those limiting beliefs that you're going to have to work until you're 67 and collect Social Security and trade time for money and yada, yada. And so that's an example of a reframe around a limiting belief that I was broke and broken and destined for failure and destined to work a hot, nasty construction job in the hot Florida sun for the rest of my life, trading time for money.